Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Patriot's History. I'm Larry Swikart, co-author of Patriot's History of the United States with Mike Allen. Several reminders. First of all, we have an updated edition. It's not going to be published. I can send you the new chapters in PDF form. I have a stack here. I got to review it one more time and get rid of some of the errors, but that's that. You can get that by emailing me at larry@wildworldofhistory.com. I'll send it to you free. Right now we have two new chapters, 23 and 24, goes from 2018 to 2025. I know our early chapters of the book were about, I don't know, 20 printed pages per chapter, something like that. 25, 30, I don't know. And this is typewritten, so when you publish a book, typewritten pages shrink to about 4 to 3. Also, for these old eyes, I've written everything in a 16 font instead of the usual 12 font. So that probably reduces it some more still. Nevertheless, it's looking like each of these chapters is going to come in at around 60 typewritten pages. So I just couldn't find what to leave out. I don't like to quote Nikolai Lenin very much, but Lenin had a phrase that there are decades in which nothing happens, and there are weeks in which decades happen. And the last 9 years, the moment Trump came down that escalator, the world changed. And I don't think that's hyperbole. Hang on, something's bugging me out of the corner of my eye here. Hold on. I found it. I don't think that's hyperbole. In the past 9 years, because of the rapidity of communications, computers, phones, you can call or talk to anyone in the entire world from their bedroom. You can, to quote John Maynard Keynes, order something from Amazon in the morning and it'll be there by lunchtime in some cases. We have an Amazon store, a super delivery facility 5 miles from here. And quite frequently, if I order something in the morning, it's there before lunchtime. But in addition to just the speed and rapidity of life, we have had a challenged election, 2016, followed by basically a coup attempt by the Democrat Party, Hillary Clinton, trying to overthrow Trump with resist, with Antifa, with my Russiagate, with special counsel, all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, at the end of his, well, once earlier, and then at the end of his presidency, he had really two impeachments, or impeachments by the House without any conviction by the Senate. This is all in a 4-year period. And then at the end of Trump's first term, you had COVID. Now, this was a worldwide pandemic. It hit everybody. More important, it changed life everywhere because of the idiot recommendations of the day were to shelter in place and stand 6 feet apart and wear those goofy maskies and get a vax. So, and now we're seeing the horrendous carnage of those vaxes. I mean, not a day goes by the new study doesn't come out and go, they linked the vax to heart problems. They linked the vax to cancer. They linked the vax to respiratory problem. Whatever you have that can be bad, the vax is somehow linked to it and increases the likelihood of getting it or being worse from it, whatever. So we had that going on. We had January 6th, Patriot Day, as I call it. And you had people arresting Americans for a peaceful protest. I know there were a few people got out of hand, but basically this is a government agitated protest, that everything was peaceful till the Capitol cops began firing tear gas and rubber bullets and all the rest of the stuff. And then, of course, the only, contrary to the lies the media puts out, the only person killed at that event was Ashley Babbitt, who was shot by Michael Byrd, who should be serving time in jail. Any Capitol cops like Officer Skechnik died later, day or so later, from heart-related problems. Nobody died at the time there of those kind of protecting the Capitol or saying they were protecting the Capitol. Anyway, you had that. Then you had the most unprecedented 4-year campaign to simply remove, absolutely and totally remove, the leading candidate for the other party from all political activities. They sued him in civil court for hundreds of millions of dollars. They filed, they charged him multiple criminal counts, all of which just were garbage and went away. They tried to pass laws that would prohibit him from being buried at Arlington, which is a prerogative of all presidents. They tried to pass laws prohibiting anybody from naming any roads, bridges, airports, government buildings after him. Just outrageous. They truly thought they would bankrupt him and or put him in jail for the rest of his life. And then they tried to keep him off ballots. And none of that worked. And of course, you know the outcome. Trump came back in a historic fashion with a massive, truly massive in our day and age, landslide victory. You no longer are going to have the Reagan over Mondale where you win 49 states. That's not going to happen with our hugely polarized electorate that has states such as Illinois, California, New York, that are just simply never, well, I won't say never, probably not in a long, long time voting for a Republican again. I mean, that people in New York City just elected an outright socialist. So you can get that by emailing me at larry@wildworldhistory.com. I will be, again, doing the homeschool conventions next year. I have added the Florida Parent Educators Association, FPEA, in May. I'm pretty sure I'm going to add Texas Homeschool at Woodlands also in May. I will be doing the Arizona Homeschool as well, plus all plus 4 of the great homeschool conventions. This year, I will not be going to Greenville, South Carolina. Just wasn't profitable enough for me, and it really is a terrible trip on my body. I either have to spend an extra day and break it in half and spend the night in Dallas, or get up at 1 in the morning to get to the airport for a 5 o'clock trip. And if I'm have any connection that's at all late or anything, I'll miss setting up on Thursday night. So I just decided to cancel Greenville. I'm sorry if any of you are out there in Greenville, but it just wasn't working out. 2 last things, and then we'll get started here. And I mentioned a socialist, and tonight what we're going to do is read from the Patriot's History Reader the socialist Eugene V. Debs's presidential nomination acceptance speech in 1908. But the other 2 things are, you see over my shoulder here, my new book, America in the 21st Century, will be out in February. You can pre-order it now. If you want an autographed copy, email me, larry@wildworldhistory.com, and I'll give you directions as to how to get an autographed copy when it comes out. As of now, we are planning to release around Christmas a 1-semester government civics class. Patriots History, just like the Wild World of History products. I will be doing video lectures that will accompany a teacher's guide. You'll have a student workbook. You'll have tests, just like the course that you've already worked on. It's a 1-semester course, 10 units as of right now. And we're going to try to have a special midterm sale on that. It'll be cheaper than what it'll be at the convention to get everybody kind of started on this course. Then It won't be available at Christmas, but it will be available by the conventions. I will have a course called Good Economics, an economics course. So we will do government and economics. Each a one semester course will be available by convention time. I think the government class will be available by Christmas. Okay, let's get started. Tonight I'm reading from Patriot's History Reader, chapter 31, Eugene V. Debs Presidential Nomination Acceptance Speech, 1908. Eugene V. Debs was a first-generation American born to French immigrants from Alsace in Terre Haute, Indiana, 1855. Family was prosperous, but Debs dropped out of school at 14 to work in the railroad yards. He became a founding member of the Brotherhood of Local Firemen and dedicated himself to union activities. Locomotive firemen, and right, not firemen. These are the guys who fire the locomotive with coal. Sometimes wood, but usually coal as they're riding down the rails. In prison after the Pullman strike of 1894, Debs studied the writings of Karl Marx and therefore was a devoted socialist. Anyway, the following speech was given in the square of Girard, Kansas, where he was living when he was informed of his nomination as the Socialist Party of America's candidate for president of the United States. It was an impromptu talk and one held in high regard by American socialists as coming from his heart instead of his mind. Debs went on to garner only 420,980 votes in the 1908 election compared to 7.6 million for Taft and 6.4 million for Bryan. So the socialist message was not resonating, but it was out there. In this speech, now known as The Issue, Debs outlined the general pie-in-the-sky utopia that would be realized through a socialist victory. He had fallen in with the radicals fresh from Europe who blamed all human failure on capitalist system and the environment in which people were raised. His defense of collectivism and socialism and his stance toward private property reflected thinking that still is prevalent today, as in New York City, which just elected socialist, the amazing Zoran Mamdani. That city's going to be, it's going to be Escape from New York. But anyway, although even an individual salvation required thinking that is still prevalent today, even an individual salvation required collective salvation through collective actions promoting social justice to be realized. Although he recognized that the marvels of science and industry had been accomplished under capitalism, he was against giving the system any credit for these advances, of course, because socialism produces nothing. I used to tell my students I know all about communism. I was in a rock band. We shared everything, had nothing, and starved. That's the definition of communism. Such ideas resonated with the recent immigrants from Eastern and Central Europe and among working class people who felt trapped in lower paying jobs. He made them feel privileged and cultured by emphasizing cultural music, literature, and art, a theme stressed by American communists and socialists throughout the 20th century, though contradictory to the very notion of collectivism and economic equality. All right, so let me explain something to you. Marx in Communist Manifesto. What makes a communist is the same thing that makes a socialist, is the same thing that makes a fascist. They are all three the same at their root. And the root is this: the labor theory of value. The labor theory of value, as espoused by Marx, says physical labor and only physical labor are the only things that make value. Talent, creativity, sporting talent, musical talent, artistic talent, managers, people who invest, bank managers, salesmen, none of that counts as value to Marx because nobody was physically making something, which is absurd. Labor theory of value says that if you work, hence you've expounded physical labor, you should be rewarded. You should be paid. And I can show you in 30 seconds how that's utterly stupid. If I were to drop you in the middle of the Sahara Desert from a helicopter with a pick and shovel and you start digging a hole in the Sahara Desert, assuming you get any kind of hole dug at all before the sand caves back in, and you work really hard all day digging a hole. Let's say you're even successful. At the end of the day, you have a beautiful hole. You even brought sandcastle molds and have little castles all around the side of your hole. Under Marxism, socialism, communism, and fascism, labor theory of value says you should stick your hand out and someone should put money in your hand because you expended physical energy and did physical work. That's the only kind of work there is. That's the only kind of labor there is. Now, you know why that's stupid. It's so obvious. It's astounding that supposedly, and I always doubt that they're this smart, but supposedly smart people like Marx and Lenin and this guy, Debs, actually believe this stuff. Why will nobody put money in your hand? Why will you not get any money at all when you go out and dig a hole in the middle of the desert? Quick answer. Nobody wants it. Nobody asked you to. Nobody said they'd pay you to do it. You just did it, but you expended labor, which Marx says ought to be paid. Now, who have you helped? Have you helped anyone else? No. Adam Smith, the father of capitalism, in his Wealth of Nations, essentially said, capitalism works because you help your fellow man. You provide value to your fellow man. In theory, people are buying my curricula products because there is value in them. Okay? So Smith asks this fundamental question. Have you helped your fellow man today? And people will say, oh, yeah, I helped my fellow man. Why? Well, I went down to the nursing home and I read to people. Or I went down and I painted over graffiti downtown. Okay. I mean, I'm sure there's people who appreciated that. But did anybody appreciate it enough to pay you for it? Okay, so I know we're taking a long time, but it's absolutely crucial before we get into this that you understand what socialism is. Capitalism asks the question, have you helped your fellow man today? And if the answer is yes, I have, there's a follow-up question, prove it. Well, how do I prove it? Well, do you have something called money? Did you get a check? Did somebody give you money for what you did? You see, money, this requires a little explanation of money. Money is a physical manifestation of your time, talent, and energy. I'll say that again. Money is a physical manifestation of your time, talent, and energy. So when somebody gives me, I think it's currently priced at $32.50, $32.50 for Patriot's History of the United States. I happen to have one. I sell it to him. That person has just given me some of their life. They have just given me a very small amount of their time, talent, and energy that they used to benefit other people who rewarded them with a paycheck. So let's see, you're a pool cleaner, okay? I pay a pool service to come by and clean my pool, take care of all of my machines and pumps and all that sort of stuff. Why? Because they provide a value for me. I probably maybe could do it, but I'm not sure I understand all the stuff with the pumps and all that. I'd have to do a lot of work in order to just do the simple task of cleaning my own pool and maintaining my own pool machine. It's much easier for me to pay a pool cleaner to come clean my pool. That guy takes the money that I paid him for providing a service to me And he, in turn, spends some of it on, let's say, a new album. Goes on Amazon, on Apple Music, you know, download songs like Gretchen Goes to Kansas or something. So what has he just done? He has taken some of his time, talent, energy that I paid him with my time, talent, energy when I sell books, and he has now paid a musician or a group of musicians who do these songs. See? So you have to be very, very careful. I know I'm talking to a lot of religious people. A lot of churches do service. I taught at a Catholic university for, I don't know, what, 35 years, 31 years. And being good Catholics, they had student service where students, to get certain credits to graduate, had to go do service projects. Well, I don't know what they did, if it was serve food at a homeless shelter, or I don't know what they did. I'm sure they had a huge list of things they could choose from. But here's the point. It's not service. Service only occurs if you do something voluntarily. If you voluntarily, watch this, give up some of your time, talent, and energy. So instead of getting paid for scrubbing graffiti off of the side of a library, you do it because you want to. It's free. That's service. I even don't like the term, I understand it, but I don't like the term military service, because really there are in our past have been two groups of military veterans. There have been volunteers who are truly serving in the context of the word that I'm using it now, as opposed to draftees who are providing their military duty, which is totally different. The government says, because you're a part of the United States of America, you must do certain things. You must pay taxes. We would like it if you'd go vote once in a while. If you're a man, well, it used to be if you're a man, but now it's anybody can be drafted in national emergency to go fight in a war. That's a military duty, which you do. You may like doing, but it's not service, which is volunteering. That's my argument. So when you go down, let's say, to a nursing home. So what did you do? Well, did you serve your fellow man today? Oh, yes. What'd you do? Oh, I went down and read to the old folks. Really? Yeah. And how do you know that you served them? Because it's free. You say, well, oh, they're very interested. They all thanked me. Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you happen to hang around and hear what they said when you were out of earshot range, or did you know what they said when you left? Some said, couldn't wait for that girl to leave. I had to go to the bathroom and take my pill. Whatever. The question you need to ask, and I'm not saying don't do service, I am saying be very, very careful. Because true service is done because you want to do it. Okay. But because you are not getting paid for it, you do not know what you are doing is worth to someone else, because they're not telling you. They tell you by paying you. I tell my pool man he's worth a certain amount to me. He's valuable to me because I pay him. But if you're not getting paid for something, I'm not saying it may not have value. I'm saying you don't know what that value is, because the other person is not willing or able to give you their time, talent, and energy in return for what you do for them. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So you got to be very, very careful. with the whole concept of service, because it's real easy to get all puffed up. Oh, I go down and I help at the house of bread every 3 days a week. But you're not getting paid for that. No, no, it's service. What's it worth? Well, it's worth a great deal. Really? How do you know? Well, they tell me so. Okay. Well, if somebody has any money, do they pay you for doing that? Well, no. There you go. All right. So labor theory of value says physical energy, physical work of any sort should be rewarded because you just did work, right? Did you serve your fellow man today? That's the question. So what happened with our drop you in the middle of the desert example? You served no one. Nobody wanted that. Nobody asked for it. You probably did it because you got a wild hair up your you know what, or because you thought they need this. I'm going to do something. They don't know, but they need this. Now, what happens if you have a law that requires that anytime you do this labor, say at a McDonald's, Starbucks, something like that, you must get paid. And not only get paid, you must get paid a certain amount that the government says you must get paid. Do you really think it's worth $20 an hour for a McDonald's employee to, I watch what they do to the fries. They put the fries in a vat of grease, turn the little timer, take them out, salt them, put them in a bag. Even if they did nothing but that straight for an hour, is that worth $20 an hour? If you had a choice of spending $20 for an hour's worth of value, is that what you'd use it on? We don't know, see? But when the state steps in and says you must pay this person $20 an hour, regardless of whether they serve you or not, by producing enough food that you can afford to pay them $20 an hour and pay for all that grease and pay for all the potatoes and pay for those extremely expensive stoves and pay for the power and pay for your insurance. So if this yo-yo slips on some grease and hurts himself, they can't sue you, or they're not going to get any money from you, get it from the insurance company. And advertise and say, hey, we have fries. You see how this works? So watch this. If you have a government system that has minimum wage, and our person is dropped in the Sahara Desert under such a system, goes out and works 8 hours, sticks his hand out, I've worked, pay me. And because of government regulations, you get paid. Who has been benefited in that transaction? Has anybody else in the world? No, only you. You're the only one that got paid, but you didn't create anything that helps anybody else out in their life, right? Therefore, socialism, communism, fascism are all branches of the same tree based on the labor theory of value that is totally selfish. You're the only one who benefited. Capitalism is just the opposite. It says you must serve others first with no guarantee of reward. See that book? I've already written that book. I got no advance on that book. I don't think I got it. Maybe I got a small advance, but it's small. Okay. We haven't sold a single book yet. Now, this book, Patriot's History of the United States, we didn't get an advance on that, right? I don't think we did. If we did, it's small, but it sold pretty well right away. But then after 6 years, when I went on the Glenn Beck show, it took off and it sold and sold and sold. It's in its 45th printing now. So people apparently see great value in that book, enough value that they will give me a physical representation of their own time, talent, energy, their life, called money. Now, this book over here is not out yet. And basically, even if I got a small advance, I guarantee it wasn't worth all the effort it took me to write it, to research it, and everything else. So I have given that to the publisher to present it to you on the speculation, the hope that you will like it and buy enough copies to pay them for all the printing presses, all the paper, all the editors, all the artists, all the graphic designers, all the advertisers, and me. That's the hope. You see the difference? In capitalism, you give, and it shall be given unto you, if you've provided a value to someone else. If you don't help someone else, you don't get anything. But in socialism, our friend sticks his hand out. The government says you've got a minimum wage. You got to pay him $20. He worked an hour. He worked 8 hours. It's $160. He's the only one who's been benefited by that transaction. In that case, it's take, and it shall be given to you. All right. So these are the terms we're dealing with when we look at this idea of socialism. Let's see. He made new immigrants feel privileged and captured by emphasizing classical music, literature, and art, a theme stressed by American communists and socialists throughout the 20th century, though contradictory to the very notion of collectivism and economic equality. Again, this is the idea that our basketball stars, our football stars, our baseball stars, our rock and rollers, our classical music people, our writers, are special. They're different. There are not many of us who, like Cooper Flagg, are 6'10" and can run like a deer and shoot from the outside. There aren't many of us, relatively speaking, who can sing well enough to even get on The Voice or American Idol, let alone to win it. Very small number. So they have very, very, very special talents. But under communism, it's irrelevant because they haven't worked, they haven't done physical labor. See the difference here? It's so hypocritical that Debs is out there talking about art and music and so forth, when in a true socialist society, you wouldn't have any of that, or it wouldn't be any good. If you want a very good short story, was it Bradbury? I want to say Ray Bradbury. Oh, shoot. Now I just lost the title. Well, I was thinking of the title of the author. I lost. Harrison Bergeron. The name of the short story is Harrison, Harrison, Bergeron, Bergeron. And it's a story of the future, where maybe the present, where in order to make people equal, you were penalizing people who had real talent. People who could jump high or run fast had to wear weights. People who could sing had something attached to their throat, so they couldn't sing as well as people who can't sing, like me. Read Harrison Bergeron. It's an eye-opener. I think it's Bradbury. I could be wrong on the author. Okay, so you see how hypocritical this is to say, oh, we love our arts, and how today, for example, the Democrat Party fights so hard for state-funded arts. Why state-funded? Because then you don't have to produce anything of value. All you have to do is produce something that the government says to produce. If the government said, paint 20 pictures that are all white except for a yellow dot in the middle, and we'll pay you $1 million, who does that benefit? Right. But the artist gets rich in any system where you have a government in charge of the arts. I am told, I haven't seen it, but I am told there are warehouses in many of the European countries that have all of these subsidies for painters and artists, and these warehouses are crammed to the gills with crap paintings and art, stuff that no one would ever buy. And so the government buys it. Taxpayers pay for that out of their hard-earned money through taxes. And this stuff just sits there because nobody will buy it. All right. Debs was jailed and permanently disenfranchised for his opposition to military conscription during World War I, but continued to oppose the United States form of government and social system to the last. So I made a note. I'm not seeing it though. So never mind. All right. Let's see how far we can get through this. Maybe we'll do about half of it. It's about 5 pages long, so it's kind of long. So we'll start. Speech at Girard, Kansas, May 23rd, 1908. This is Debs speaking. Comrades, ladies and gentlemen, when I made some inquiry a few moments ago as to the cause of this assembly, I was told the beginning of another street fair. I am quite surprised, and agreeably so, to find myself the central attraction. Allow me in the very beginning to express my heartiest appreciation of the more than kind, generous words which have been spoken here for me this afternoon. The honor to which reference has been made has come to me through no fault of my own. It has been said that some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. It is even so with what are called honors. Some have honors thrust upon them. I find myself in that class. I did what I could to prevent myself from being nominated by the convention now in session at Chicago, but the nomination sought me out. And in spite of myself, I stand in your presence this afternoon as the nominee of the Socialist Party for the presidency of the United States. Long, long ago, I made up my mind never again to be a candidate for any political office within the gift of the people, but I have to violate that now because when I joined the Socialist Party, I was taught that the wish of the individual was subordinate to the party will, and that the party commanded it was my duty to obey. So you no longer have any individual desires, any individual ideas. You become part of the hive. Now, my friends, I am opposed to the system of society in which we now live today, not because I lack the natural equipment to do for myself, but because I'm not satisfied to make myself comfortable knowing that there are thousands upon thousands of my fellow men who suffer for the barest necessities of life. Do they provide a lot of value? See, what value do they provide to all other people that would lead all other people to pay them more money? We have jobs in our society that don't pay much. Why? Because a great number, nay, a majority, can do most of those jobs if they had to. If I had to, I could go out and be a garbage man. I couldn't dig ditches at my age, but I could do a lot of other things. I could drive a garbage truck. I could drive a school bus. I've taught lower grades. Why don't they get more money? Because there's so much competition for that job, because let me put it this way, anybody could do it. But you or I cannot go out and do what Luka Doncic does every night and shoot 3-pointers from the mid-court line all night long. We couldn't go out and do what, I don't know, Miley Cyrus or Katy Perry do and sing and write songs. Most of them write songs that everybody likes. I like some Katy Perry songs. Don't like her, but I like some of her songs. So I'm willing to pay a little more to get that. We went to a concert the other night. This is very interesting, by the way. It's a group called Leonid and Friends. They are Russian and Moldavian Ukrainian. Back in 2010 or so, Leonid, the bass player, became infatuated with the music of the band Chicago from late 60s, early 70s. And he got a group of his very good musician friends together and he charted out Chicago songs and they learned to play them. And that meant that the singers had to learn American English accents, not just American English accents, but American Negro slang as well. They play songs, for example, by Tower of Power, black band, mostly black band. Got some idiom, figure of speeches in it, figures of speech in it. But you get my drift here. They're an incredible band. So we saw them live the other night, the second time. Tickets were $120 per person. Now it's a big band. I think it's like 9 or 10 people. They've got sound people. They've got tour director guides to help them because they're Russian. They have a lot of help. They got roadies that set stuff up, but nevertheless, I don't know how many people were in just this one concert. They may have done more. Usually they only do one night, though. But in the theater we were in, I'm guessing there were anywhere, probably around 2,000 people. So you can do the math as to how much money they grossed. Now, they didn't make all of that, of course. They had to pay the theater, had to pay the ticket office, had to pay the sound man, had to pay the equipment man, had to pay the transportation to get there and get to their next job, so on and so forth. But nevertheless, that's a lot of money to go to a concert, $120 a person, plus there was parking, plus there was fees, and none of us ate or drank anything there because that would be another $30 or $40. All right. So the point is, there are a great number of jobs in America that with just a little training, almost anybody can do. There are a great number of jobs that with a lot of training, almost anybody can do. There are very few jobs that rely on talent so much that it doesn't matter how much you're trained. I'm not going to dunk a basketball. I can hit some shots from the free throw line. I'm not going to be able to hit too many 3-pointers. And that's if I'm standing still with all day to think about it, not with a 6'5" guy in my face trying to slap the ball back down into my head. You see? So when you start to look, you see, oh, shouldn't get this much money. Well, are you capable of running a multi-million dollar, probably multi-billion dollar company that has offices and business in every country of the world, in overseeing what new products to roll out and when, in understanding all the market analysis data, in understanding insurance contracts and what you have in the company that's insured and what isn't, in understanding how to motivate people and make them do it. Okay, take Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys quarterback. There's a great show on Netflix called Quarterback, and every season it follows 3 different quarterbacks through a whole season. A couple of years ago, they followed Patrick Mahomes and Kirk Cousins, and I forget the third guy they did, but they followed him, and it turns out Marcus Mariota. And one guy, of course, ended up winning the Super Bowl. One guy was good, but didn't quite get there. It'd be Cousins. And then one guy, team wasn't very good at all, and he wasn't very good. He's better than 99% of the college quarterbacks who come out every year, but he's not nearly as good as Cousins. And he's not even remotely as good as Mahomes. So Mahomes gets 50, 60, $100 million. I forget what his last contract was. Isn't that obscene? No, that's not. Because he's one of 4 or 5 people in the entire world that can do what he does. Kansas City Swifts would not be anywhere without Patrick Mahomes. Amazon Blue Origin spaceships. Washington Post wouldn't be anywhere without Jeff Bezos. I don't particularly like the guy, but he's a genius. How many of those guys are there? Very, 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 very few. So whereas if something happened and you or I needed to, we could go to McDonald's and get a job, and we'd probably be very good employees. But if something happened to Bezos, I dare say none of us could go take over Amazon and run that company. I probably couldn't even run a data center. I probably couldn't even run a McDonald's, and not without a lot of training. Maybe with some training, I could be a manager. See, so you see how it stacks up over time. All right. So anyway, this is Debs for you. Now, my friends, I'm opposed to a system of society in which we now live today, not because I lack the natural equipment to do for myself. We don't know that, because instead of doing for himself, he took this socialist route, but because I'm not satisfied to make myself comfortable knowing that there are those thousands upon thousands of my fellow men who suffer the barest necessities of life. Because most people don't produce a ton of value for your fellow man. And because almost anybody can do their job. We were taught under the old ethic that a man's business upon this earth was to look out for himself. No, you're not. That's not what the Bible says. The Bible says in the early church they were looking out for everybody. But there were divisions in the Bible. I'm not talking about male-female divisions, right? There were the apostles who were to study, read the word, teach, proselytize, set up missionary journeys for other people. And then there were people like Stephen who were called, note that word, to be servers when you're distributing the bread to the widows and all the other people. It's quite a job. It'd be like running a homeless shelter. It wasn't nearly that bad, but it'd be like that, okay? Thousands of years ago, the question was asked, am I my brother's keeper? That question was never yet answered in a way that is satisfactory to the civilized society. Yes, I am my brother's keeper. I am under a moral obligation to him, inspired not by any maudlin sentimentality, but by the higher duty I owe myself. What would you think of me if I were capable of seating myself at a table and gorging myself with food, and saw about me one of the children of my fellow beings starving to death? Okay, well, the answer to that is read the Bible. The Bible says that any Christian who doesn't provide for his own family is worse than a sinner, worse than a heathen. So the first obligation of a husband and a father is to provide for the family. Now, yes, things happen. You get in accidents, get older. There are times at which you can no longer do this. And we have, in every democracy in the world, vast social networks to take care of these people. Do they do it as well as they should? Probably not, because the very nature of socialism and social networks is they're not very effective. They're always wasteful. They're always incompetent. Why? Because somebody else is not giving you their time, talent, and energy, and they're not saying to you, now you get this done right, or I'm not paying you next time. I can always say to my pool guy, you're not doing a very good job. I'm going to go with another pool service. In fact, and I urge you to try this, I called my pool service up and said, look, I've been going around to my insurance companies, to DirecTV, to everybody where I have a monthly bill. Times are tough. I want you to lower my bill by $15 a month. And they did. And so did DirecTV. They found me a new package where I didn't lose anything and I paid less. So did my insurance company. Try it sometime. You know, you won't get it if you don't ask. I would make a list of the top 10 bills that you have to pay and see if there's any of those people you can contact directly and say, hey, any way that we can reduce my monthly bill by just 5%. And you'd be surprised at how much that adds up at the end of the month. All right, anyway. So it's a false setup, false proposition here that you don't care for somebody if you're doing well yourself. First of all, ain't no po person ever gave me a job in my entire life. I'm sorry, I can't remember one time where a homeless guy gave me a job. But my keyboard player one time saw a guy on the side of the road, will work for food, and he said, I'll tell you what, I'm redoing my driveway. Come home with me. I'll give you 3 meals a day. I'll pay you minimum wage for an entire week's worth of work. We'll work for food, right? No. Could you just give me $1 instead? See, that person's not interested in working. They're not interested in providing value to other people. In fact, not in all cases, but I would argue that in many cases they are selfish because they're not helping anybody else at all. They're sponging. Some of them are very capable of working. I mean, I laid out a structure one time where somebody could, take showers at the YMCA and all sorts of, and just have a fairly normal life and work a minimum wage job and put money away. But they're not interested in doing that. Most of them. There's some of them are crazy too. But okay, so we're going to stop there. It took a long time to lay the groundwork here because this guy's a socialist nutcase. And if you don't stop and explain what's going on, he might even sound reasonable once in a while. That's the danger of communism and socialism and fascism, is that they do sound appealing because you don't have the if then. Pollsters, including some good ones on our side, occasionally don't structure polls right. A poll can only really be good if there's an alternative. For example, would you favor raising taxes? No, sorry. Would you favor yourself paying more in taxes per month for a bike path? Oh, we need a bike path. Bike paths are so wonderful. Okay. Would you pay more for a bike path? Now, people who bike and use bike paths are going, oh, yeah, I'd pay a few dollars a month because they're going to tap into you who don't use the bike path to pay for their hobby. And maybe it's worthwhile, maybe it's not. It's like public parks. At some point or other, most people will use a public park, whether it's 4th of July, whether it's a picnic, whether it's walking, jogging, whatnot. So people aren't too opposed to that. When you get into bike lanes and so forth, by the way, half the bicyclists I see never use the bike lane. They're always up on the sidewalk where I am. But you see what I'm saying? Many of these social amenities that we have are really a case of a few hardcore users of that particular service or good finding a way to force everybody else to pay for their fun. That's why we have public tennis courts. Everybody can't afford to be a member of a tennis club. Well, that's terrible. Well, most people don't play tennis, but now we're going to tax them so we have a public tennis court for the 10 or 20 people who do play tennis but can't get into a private club. See what I'm saying? All right, I'm going to stop there. We're going to pick up here next time and continue. We got a lot more to go on old Eugene Debs, so we'll start here. In the meantime, make sure you check out the new book, and I'll see you back here at Wild World of History.